The psychedelic revolution is here. If you want to integrate your visionary experiences into your purpose, get clear on your entrepreneurial path, and help people while you do what you love, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur, Medicine for These Times. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a spiritual business coach, 3-time entrepreneur, and a lifelong student of psychedelics and sacred plant medicines. You carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times. This podcast will help you to share your medicine so you can create transformation in the world. Listen in on conversations with psychedelic leaders, changemakers, and conscious entrepreneurs who are living proof that a better world is possible when you follow your heart and live in alignment with your soul. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Medicine for These Times. I am here with Laurence Cole. Thank you so much for being here, Laurence.
It's great to be here.
So I met Laurence about, a month and a half ago, something like that, a month ago, at a grief tending ritual that he was leading. And it was very profound and life-changing. And wow, this is definitely the medicine we need for these times that we're in. So I'll do a quick intro to Laurence and then we'll get into it. So Laurence Cole is a song elder and ritualist based in Port Townsend, Washington. An abiding thread throughout his life has been a longing to discover when, where, and how human beings have lived in respectful, sacred, equitable relationships with each other and the rest of nature, and what arts, ethics, and practices enable them to do so and pass such attitudes and behaviors on to the coming generations. In these profoundly challenging times, characterized by separation, polarization, and the commodification of nearly everything, and the consequent damage such a culture is wreaking on the life support systems of this world, the capacity to stay together and work cooperatively as a people is crucial for effective healing and restorative action in all realms. The communal arts of singing, group singing, ritual, and the collective crafting of beauty are primal technologies of connection and belonging, and have been the integral bedrock of all viable and regenerative cultures through the deep time of our presence here on Earth. When we take steps to reclaim that heritage, making use of nothing more than what we were born with, our bodies, our hearts, our voices, our spirits, we can once again experience the bonding recognition that our true wealth is each other and that all flourishing is mutual. Laurence has been facilitating and offering community grief tending gatherings throughout North America for about 15 years. His primary teachers and influences have been Sobonfu and Malidoma Some, Angeles Arian, Michael Mead, James Hillman, Francis Weller, Joanna Macy, and Martin Prachtel. He is an advocate for this work, not only for the ways it can bring release and healing for individuals, but also for the ways it can enable a renewed sense of respectful connection and belonging for groups of folks working together for restoration of mutually flourishing community. Wow. Thank you so much, Laurence, for being here. I'm so excited to have you and get into this. You know, I met you and I did this profoundly life-changing ritual, which I will say I have felt reborn since that weekend with you. I personally was in a very deep grief portal for almost a year and 3/4, it feels like, maybe 2 years, maybe longer. And then the ritual was just so impactful. But I would love to know, what is your story? How did you get into this grief work and working with your teachers?
Well, as it said in your intro, that interest I was I think a fairly early critic of the culture I was living in. I could go back all the way to early childhood, but I think the first time that I really woke up was about at the age of 8. We had moved to a valley in northeastern Oregon that had been the ancestral home of the Nemi'u people, otherwise known as the Nez Perce people. There are archaeological sites in that territory. They were very widespread for thousands of years. In fact, that archaeological site goes back 16,500 years, one of the earliest sites ever found in North America. That's 165 centuries. Um, those of us who live here in our particular pigment of skin, have been maximum probably 4 centuries. So anyway, to learn what happened to those people and the way they were expelled, um, and in the little book in my grade school, reading about Chief Joseph as a young boy going up into the mountains, being sent on a vision quest. I'd never heard of such a thing. And to find his true name and to see the energy of the name reflecting his medicine, these kinds of things. I'm 8 years old. I'm going, my God, these people knew how to raise children and do these sorts of things. It was just a mind-blowing thing. I said, I need to learn about this stuff because I'm not liking what's happening here. And so I wanted to be a part of some reclaiming of what I sensed was a more genuine kind of being human beings. That started me on a long course, which I'm still on. I'm going back to that same valley with a whole group of young people and taking them on to the place where my vision quest was up in those hills back when I was 50, 30 years ago. And so anyway, it's a thread that I've been following for quite some time. But as far as I thought, okay, I started following Eastern religion, and Taoism particularly appealed to me. And then I got involved in teaching meditation, transcendental meditation. When the Beatles got into it, I was like, oh, okay, all right. I actually was I lived in the Haight-Ashbury in those days in San Francisco, and I was in the Grateful Dead house, and every rock band in the world had started transcendental meditation because the Beatles were doing it. And there was Jerry Garcia in the kitchen of the Dead house. And I said, oh, I heard you got into TM. And he said, oh, yeah, we're digging it. He probably meditated for about another week and a half. But I got into it and loved it. But the thing is, and other spiritual things that I got into were pretty much all about bliss and sort of even tenured, peaceful, and always, the thing was to just not get uptight and not get angry, and certainly don't cry. What's wrong with you? Picking up on the same old things that our whole culture had always been shaming of strong feeling. And so I went to finally I kind of left all those things because I thought I was dying emotionally. And I went to another community that was all about absolute blasphemous, radical honesty and ruthless compassion, as they called it. And that was interesting. It did crack me open. It was sort of the sledgehammer to getting my feelings going. But I thought there's got to be a middle way and a more established way of holding the whole emotional symphony in a way that's wholesome. And though after I left that last community, I saw a flyer, a friend of mine from that community who had also left. He said, hey, have you heard about these people from Africa? And that was Malidoma and Sobonfu Somé had been sent by their elders from Burkina Faso. They're part of the Dagara people in Burkina Faso, which had been a colonized country by the French. I don't know if it was called French West Africa or something like that, but at any rate, it's now called Burkina Faso, and that's where they were sent to the West. And the thing that struck me in the little brochure was they said in our community, holding grief together, doing grief ritual together is the glue of community. And I had been so interested all this time. I'd lived communally 6 ways from Sunday, and I just was like, okay, how do you make it work? And the thought that holding grief together was the way you kept reweaving the bonds of connection and belonging and caring for each other and respecting and seeing what each one is carrying and all that. And it that happens and then it fades and you think, okay, and then people don't seem to know how to bring it all back together. And so I was curious and I went to a gathering and it was life changing, as you say. Um, it can be very restorative in ways that are quite mysterious because it's comprehensive and beyond the, step one, step two kind of thing. It's just like boom, so a whole bunch of things happen rather mysteriously that seem to rewire us in a way. I don't even particularly like the word wiring. It's more just refreshing. It's sort of moistening the whole, ecology of soul, we might say. And so I, I was, it changed my life. And I continued to go to grief rituals with both Malidoma and Sabonfu, and then they separated at some point, but continued to do the work separately. And then so I would go to one or the other and spend time with them. And then, well, probably 15 or so years ago, after a long hiatus, I, a friend of mine I'd met at one of those gatherings. We were actually stuck in the Oakland airport for 4 hours waiting for a ride, and we really connected there. And then during the process of the ritual, we kept finding ourselves at each other's backs. In the work that we do, there's always someone at your back when you're doing your deep work. There's always someone with you and attending and mirroring your energy and that sort of thing. And sometimes more than one person, but in that case, it was for some reason we always kept finding ourselves going to the altar together uh, and then supporting each other. And so then nature just kept finding ways to putting us together on a random ferry boat ride or whatever. And finally, we just think, you know, what's up with you? Oh, I'm doing grief rituals. I'm doing my own grief. Oh, well, I'm coming. So I did, and I've been doing them for, like I say, about 15, 16 years. And nowadays it's almost once a month with various people that I work with. And we've been doing mentoring programs for people interested in getting into doing the work because, as they say, there is a crying need. And it's interesting. I love these figures of speech that tell deep truths. So.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, your ritual, this ritual turned out to be very different than I expected it to be. And I'll be honest, as someone who is really processing through a lot of grief for, a year and a half or almost 2 years straight, I actually almost didn't go because, immediately I just thought, oh, it's just going to be filled with grief the whole time and it's going to make it worse. And I was just starting to feel better. And I just thought this was going to keep the grief alive in kind of the way that I had been experiencing it for almost 2 years straight. But instead, it really, to me, I mean, I don't know what the right language is, but it transmuted it. It's like it moved it somewhere. It really felt like I was able to now hold the grief in a different way. And I'm wondering, what are your theories as to, well, first, let's talk about, well, if you're allowed to, like a little bit about the ritual itself. So the weekend opened with you singing songs and, well, all of us singing songs with you. And not only songs, I'm talking 4-part harmony songs, which were just so fun to sing. And I was like, wow, singing it seemed like the foundational piece of this ritual. Is that something that your teachers had taught you, or is that something you brought in? Like, where's the singing come in to this grief work? Like, why singing instead of crying and screaming?
Mhm. Well, we use this phrase, technologies of belonging and connection. And that the first time I heard that was from Malidoma, that really ritual is just a technology of belonging. Anyway, as I mentioned before I met these folks, I did year of training with another teacher, Angelus Arian, who speaks of the four healing salves that we all carry. And essentially, I'm a techno fuddy-duddy Luddite kind of a guy, and um, I love things that we carry from birth that aren't the fancy crafting of arcane machinery to uh, to make profit on, but something everyone has access to, which is, and these healing salves are singing, dancing, storytelling, and silence, and they are restorative even in as we do them alone. But in grief ritual, all of them happen. We tell very deep stories to each other. We listen intently. We sing to build the container, to build a sense of connection and aliveness. That group singing is when it happens, and when it happens in a way that people move through, oh, I can't sing, and realize it doesn't matter. It's it's not performance. It's about joining your voice with others and finding how the attunement happens spontaneously because our bodies know how to find attunement with other energies, and we lock in when there's something off, and then it comes and nestles in, and then you feel yourself being held by other voices and other hearts, and you hold your parts together until you become a partnership. And that's a vessel that takes you somewhere you can't go alone. Even if you're a great singer, oh, wonderful, blah, blah, you're not going to get to the same place that singing together can create. And it's a tapestry of woven beauty and meaning that we generate together. And it wraps us in oh, a this mysterious um, kind of cohesion, a mist of wonder that, oh wow, look where we are, where not just what we did, where we are because we did it, and how we feel together because of that. And that is the container into which spirit likes to enter. We say making beauty feeds us, feeds the spirit realm. So spirit eats beauty, and so we start as soon as possible making a feast for the spirit to be present, both our individual spirits and the spirit of the living world and of this whole sacred creation is drawn to these nodes of beauty. And when that happens, then I'm just thinking of this, where two or more of you are gathered together, there I am also, is a phrase from the Bible. There the Holy Spirit is as well. When we come together in cohesion, in coherency, and in a shared um, expression of tonal beauty and tonal meaning, you can say as well. And those things blend. And it's beautifully done without any electronics at all. Just us. I like to say just us is another word for justice. It's we realize we need each other and everyone matters. It wouldn't be the same sound. It wouldn't be the same beauty if everyone who's brought together. And again, it's the whole notion that there are no accidental gatherings. Whoever shows up are exactly the right ones. And we've been called by spirit into that place. So there's all these things that, well, I was listening to some of your podcasts and talking about, you know, psychedelics and so on, these are this is the kind of language that people who have I haven't used psychedelics since the 60s, but I certainly had my experience, and everybody can kind of grok what I'm talking about here, if is that there are ways to transform the way we perceive the more than human influences that are actually benign and and creative in terms of creating connection and a sense of interwoven interdependency, that everything's connected to everything else, and it's smart. It's not chaotic in yeah, there is chaos, but there is also wisdom that's beyond our our own unique imaginal creation. It's mutually dependent on everything else that's happening. So anyway, I won't go on with that, but just that's why we do singing. That's a long answer. Um, that's why we move as beautifully as we can. That's why when people do fall into like a connection where people are all moving together, and if there's something about that cohesion that seems to bring more spirit into the atmosphere, and that is noticed if you're someone who's gone to the shrine to do some to really release some deep feeling or get in touch with what wants to come that you haven't been able to fully locate, and you hear those voices behind you, and the drums are going and the people are moving. There's a force field that says you can do this, and we're with you, and it's tangible. You feel it, and it's like, so that it's literally having people at your back is I'm sure that's where that all came from, and it's marvelous because you come out of the whole experience realizing our real wealth is each other, that being a people together is what makes life not just doable, but gloriously a living privilege of and magnificent adventure of through being fully honest, fully disclosing, fully open, and trusting and vulnerable, and letting the currents of life begin to re-moisten the parched places in our souls. So that's how come we do this thing.
Beautiful. Oh, such poetry there. I have tears in my eyes because, you know, so I went to this grief tending ritual. Thankfully, my friend had said one thing to me that sold me on it. She said something about this moves the grief, because I was concerned that I was just going to feel more grief and just be almost worse off. I will say this, it's interesting, I did it here in the community where I live, and I knew maybe 60% of the people there, maybe 70%, and some closer than others. But I have to say, ever since the grief ritual, I've seen a lot of these people just out and about, in my local community, and they all look different. Everyone feels different and looks different. A couple people in particular, one of them in particular I've known for many years, and she just seems like a completely different person. Her face has opened up. She seems more approachable, more vulnerable, and there's just such a deeper connection between us all now. And I feel like it's made me actually much more vulnerable in general to most people. And I've always been pretty open and pretty, kind of that, like, I don't really care what people think, and I'll just, lay it all out. But ever since this ritual, it's there's been a shift where I feel much more connected in general. Like, like I actually do belong on Earth, as much as sometimes I question that, or sometimes I don't want to be here. It's like
Mhm.
all of a sudden there's a shift in the belonging. And I think other people that went with me would probably have agreed. And the fact that we did this in a, in our local community with a lot of people that lived in our local community, it just feels like it's tighter now. Like I feel like they're really going to have my back and vice versa if the day ever needed to come, even though we're not maybe the closest of friends. Is this something you hear a lot? I mean, is this kind of like what your teachers were talking about the grief ritual or the grief, this grief work being the kind of glue of community and belonging? Is this potentially the answer to a lot of the world's problems? Maybe.
Um, I certainly believe so. And yes, I mean, they were the Melanoma and Sabonfu, they were recognized essentially before they were born, but I mean, in their culture, um, people, they're essentially known who they are and what medicine they're carrying. And that, in fact, Maladoma's name was given to him by his grandfather, means makes friends with the stranger or the enemy. In that case, it was these strange Europeans that came and were so so dismissive of the indigenous wisdom and ways, and so determined to extract as much from the landscape and subjugate the peoples, um, and doing it, like we all, if we have paid attention, know what colonialism was like everywhere. And Maladoma even suffered through 20, well, he was 4 when he went to the boarding school, the Jesuit boarding school, and was raised there, was beaten for speaking his language or saying his name or any of that. But when he escaped and returned, he was initiated. They thought maybe we can save him and turn him into a human being. We'll see what happens. And he survived his initiation, which was not guaranteed. And anyway, so Bonfu's name means keeper of the ritual. And these are things that are recognized from birth. They don't have the notion that people are born as an empty slate and or born depraved, which is more the standard notion of original sin and all that. It's like, no, they're a gift. They're born with a a collection of medicines that are woven in a unique way that's never been here before. So it's our job to help them through rites of passage and various kinds of challenges and guidances to get established, go through a sequence of initiations until you have a fully ripened elder. But it's not, they're never going to be more important than the day they're born because they come in fully loaded. And it's our job to help them remember the promise they've made before they were born. And so, and to bring that promise forward, we say people are, oh, there's so much promise. Of course, everyone does. And that's the vision of a people, is recognizing, oh, here's another person that's never been nothing like it ever. And it's absolutely critical. And the wisdom of the ancestors has brought it all together. And the ancestors include the more than human world. It's all interwoven into a meaningful process. You need to flow with it, cooperate with it, magnify it, but not see people as a little blank slate or seething with unnatural impulses that that none of that. It's all the sense of how do we welcome and establish that sense of belonging from the get-go. And it's in the womb you establish it. You're singing their song. You're doing all these things while they're still in the womb. And you can tell in the womb if you do any age regression work or whatever, and probably you made him experience that, in the womb, if this is going to be a good place, if this is going to be a place for me to be all the things that I am. And for the most part, you pick up on, oh, I'm going to have to shut that down. I'm going to have to not show that. Or you get born, and pretty soon they're trying to correct you into the kind of thing that you can be, that you might somehow be useful in the economy and earn a living. Francis Weller calls that the most obscene phrase in the human lexicon, whatever. It's like, no, you are a treasure from the get-go. You don't have to earn anything. You just have to unfold the gift that you are and give it away. You know, it's not in generally. Speaking of which, these are not money cultures. These are, yeah, we've strayed way off the path of how to be human beings in this world. So all of this stuff is this remembering, recalling back the all the members of our um, remembrances of how it is to be part of a living whole.
Perfect, because I've asked this for many years to so many people, and I'm sure we have the same answers or similar answers. But in this day and age of the fact that we are so connected more than ever, the internet, on Zoom, the phones, etc. People are just, really feeling so disconnected from themselves and one another. And then there's, especially probably like you see and I see, and a lot of my clients see, being in service to a lot of other people, how there's just such a lack of belonging and worthiness, and value in themselves, self-love, self-compassion. It's to me, this is kind of like the real epidemic, pandemic of our world. I actually did a lot of internal work last year in the middle of all my grief portal of like, why is it that humans just hate ourselves so much? And why is it that there's such a problem, like where no one, and I shouldn't say no one, but it's taken a lot of work for even, me to value myself. And I see this a lot with clients. There's this lack of, feeling like they belong, and everybody's afraid of shining their light because they're afraid of what people will think. And are they going to lose everything? Are they going to get canceled? Are they, disowned by their family? I mean, I've heard everything. What went wrong along the way? I'm just curious, what is your take on this kind of, and you mentioned the primordial wound in modern society. Like, what happened and how long ago was it?
Well, I mean, I think about this quite a bit, but one of my teachers back in the 90s, I was studying a process, this kind of a shamanic approach to hypnotherapy. It was called transformational hypnotherapy, and the teacher was a true master, and she gave me the phrase, the primal wound is the break in belonging. And then later, when I heard Malidoma say that all this work that they're bringing is our technologies of belonging. And then when I heard Angela speak about, the healing salve, singing, dancing, storytelling, and silence, that these are all technologies of belonging. But the earliest teachings, the earliest awarenesses, the earliest impressions are the thing that have the deepest impact on that sense of belonging. If you're not born into a singing people, if you're not born into a welcoming people with those kinds of things happening right at that time. And anyway, there is that break in belonging happens very early. And then if you live in like a nuclear family, uh, I don't know if you've ever heard of Mickey Cashtan. She's an amazing teacher, sort of the ongoing evolution of nonviolent communication and NVC and this sort of thing. But she's an amazing teacher. Um, and she says, and I've known this, but I never heard it put so succinctly, the nuclear family is a recipe for low capacity. And, and we always would say, uh, it takes, there's an African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. Um, and Sabonfu said, no, we don't say that. We say it takes a village to keep the parents sane. It's like and what Mickey Cashtan brings out is we're born and we're hardwired. We couldn't be the people we are. We're meant to be if we weren't essentially maternally, instinctually maternal in our way, because we all are born premature. Our heads are too big. If we were born like a baby deer can walk in 2 days, or even the first day, or all these things, our heads are too big for that. We have these giant brains that would kill our mother if we were born ready to live out here in the world in a good way. We need people to take care of us, and we're a lot. It's more than it's more than just one or two people can handle. And of course, that was never the case. We lived in collections of people, you know, Melody say minimum 40 pairs of adoring eyes who are celebrating the arrival of this new bundle of medicine. And it's like you, children are passed from one to the other, and they grow up in multi-age groups, and there's never a sense that they don't fit and don't belong. They're celebrated by so many people, and everyone knows it's too much to just stay on the job 24/7 with a young child for the first 2 or 3 years. It takes a whole village to keep everyone in balance and to meet what Alice Miller called the narcissistic supplies of being the center of attention to many people, so that it shifts, of course. So it's not all left up to one or two people. That drives them crazy because it's more than can be handled. You need a whole community at your back and celebrating in that opportunity, because we love, the time we get to spend with small beings is delicious to us, and we love being called auntie or uncle or grandpa or whatever, and so everybody gets that. And when you're all living together, but then you're full of a sense of worthiness. When that hasn't been there, and when parts of us have been shut down, particularly things like crying or anger or whatever, because it's too much, I get it, I can say, oh boy, you're really in pain right now. You can mirror that, and that's beautiful to be mirrored, and so on. And then someone else needs to come who's just come back from running or hunting or whatever, and they hand them maybe to Ellen because they've got all this energy to help you, because we're immature nervous system. So it's all this very early stuff that has to be taken up and furthered by a people, and feeling valued in that, because we know you're helpless. And so, but we still love you, and we trust you, and we know that you're carrying something important, and so we're never going to let you down until you're ready to get down. Does that make sense? And so you belong, and you carry yourself like, I am so groovy. And it's wonderful, because it's not fear-based. It's a deep establishment, but it's bad for business. You want people to have as Martine Prechtel says, we're all hardwired with a longing to belong and a longing to be longed for. It's the essence. We want to be welcomed and valued and feel like I'm a good thing. And that longing to be longed for by your people is met. When it's not met, and it's not met at that deepest, most subconscious levels of early childhood and in the womb and everything, it's like It's perfectly, you come out perfectly made for living in an acquisitive culture of competitive culture for attention and for getting more and more and holding on and making sure that and being fear-based and all that. It's wonderful for capitalism. It's really good for business be- because people are trying to feel the longing with the longing to belong with belongings that the price is going up, folks, and you better just stay with the program and work harder. And it's a growth, it's a suicidal economy, but it starts on the basis of people not loving themselves and not trusting that they're a good thing. And it's right in so it starts from the beginning. You can't run a revolution with a bunch of narcissistic, wounded people and think you're going to replace it with anything but more of the fucking same. Sorry. It's just, it's just insane. We have to start from the get-go. We have to go back to basics and learn what it means to belong and how do we refresh that. And that's when we start coming back to grieving and using ritual in ways that helps us find our way back to the truth of what it means to be truly alive as a human being and as a people, not just a singular identity. James Hillman said, the self is not in community, the self is community. And it doesn't mean that you're some kind of monochrome thing, because community is just this rich diversity. Go into an old growth forest, go anywhere where life is let to interweave itself in its full splendor and abundance and mutual flourishing. It's an amazing thing. There's nothing there's so much diversity, and that's what people who have spent time in these more natural communities. Why is everybody? I thought tribal mind, everybody just all the same, dum de dum de dum. No, it's like every one of them are just such amazing, different people. I'm like, ha, and yet you know, somebody needs something. Everybody makes sure they get it. It's like they don't barter. It's not like, oh, going back to the barter system. Man, that's you do that with, you don't try to get a good deal. People need something, you make sure they have it. It's not about equal pieces of the pizza. It's about making sure everyone has enough because everyone matters and everybody's needs shift and change. And let's pay attention to each other and care for each other. That's the maternal instinct that starts from those early days and minutes even, and even pre-birth, that our people carry. If they've received that, they naturally want to give it on. And giving that is, we have the word contentment. It means what do I contain are my contents, and are my contents coming from this abundant heart that wants to be emptied of its love, given into the world, into the immediate environment, and that's where I know myself as fully present and fully in the blend of love that makes the community work. And it also includes all kinds of space for grief and for frustration and anger and loss and all the other things that are going to happen anyway. But if you're doing it and holding it together, then you feel at your baseline is content. I am here. I am a good thing, and I love being available when someone's in need because I take pleasure in the well-being of others. This is the essence of a true human soul, and it's not. And that's the irony of things. That even at the time of uh, when the Puritans showed up, the early that's what they were trying to get back to the pure teachings, you know, of Jesus was saying, hey, someone needs your coat, give them two. Make sure, you know, take care of each other. It's basically it. Do this. I'm trying to show you how you do it. Go out and do likewise. You call it miracles because you're so wounded with your breaking belonging. You didn't go there. The point is, that's what we're like. That's how we are.
This is really incredible what you've shared. It's very illuminating, and sometimes it's the basis of my grief, the irony, the world. So, as someone who's doing this grief medicine, bringing it to more people, trainings, tending, but then has this awareness of kind of these primordial wounds and kind of like the threads of what has gone wrong. And I put that in quotes because I try to believe that maybe what is wrong is actually okay. But I don't know, it's very hard because it still causes sadness and grief. But what is your feeling on these larger scale, issues on planet Earth? Like, do you accept that this is just okay and this is where we're at, and the Earth, humanity needs to go through their own initiation, their own, dark night of the soul? Or do you have hope that maybe in a few generations or even possibly this lifetime things could change? I mean, how do you cope with this reality of even just what you said about like these cultural disconnection and lack of belonging, and also throwing in capitalism and systems, and we could go on, but how do you sit with it? Or is this just the grief that we all need to process?
I think I might have mentioned when I was back there, that new saying I'd heard from Maladona. It's it's not a good idea to seek perfection in the immediate. It is a good idea to say, here I am, I know nothing. I only know this. I can show up. Showing up with all your inabilities qualifies you to be hired by the Spirit to do the impossible. And you can say, oh God, it's impossible. On the other hand, oh, we're not in charge. And my Angelus would say, the way of wisdom is to walk at ease in the land of not knowing. And so all I know is I can show up, and I can find that the more I'm present for my own feeling and other people's feeling, and my sense of doing the regular grieving work, it washes my soul. It cleanses the windows of perception. I'm in love with the world even more fiercely. I'm in love. I find myself growing even kinder and willing to make more space in people I don't like very much or whatever. It's like, wait a minute. It's like something's happening, and I can just keep doing what I'm doing, and then trusting that it's happening. Angelus would say things look bad, and if you're really paying attention during your day, there's an awful lot that is looking really good. And there's so many opportunities to be kind and to be affirmative and all this kind of thing, and to the degree to which you're not focused on, not one of the four basic addictions to her was fixating on what's not working. And so, it's addiction to perfection, addiction to intensity, the addiction to the need to know, and the addiction to fixating on what's not working. And so everyone's got these addictions, but the degree to which you do your work, the degree to which they don't have to run the show 24/7, and you can begin to expand the territory in which you can take another look. In other words, respect where you are and who you're with. And that's what the meaning of respect means. These are spectacles. Spectacles. You take another look. Because the root word spectate, I think it is, means to look. So pay attention to the opportunity to look again and respect where you are and your capacity to love in the midst of it, to at least show some appreciation for where you are and tend to how you're feeling, and give some forgiveness to yourself and pass it along. It's there's all these opportunities, and as many people are engaged in that as there are engaged in the horrors that make the news. So um, that's all I can say. I I have no idea if we're going to pull through this time, but I love the last words of the poem by Gary Snyder, where he says, "The slopes of statistics are all, lay before us, going up, up as we all go down. What they say in the next century or the one beyond that, there are valleys, pastures. We can meet there in peace if we make it. To climb these coming crests, one word to you and your children. Stay together, learn the flowers, go light." And there's so many ways to, so staying together, do your grief work together, and you'll begin to feel a togetherness that you didn't know was possible. Learn the flowers, learn what they're really teaching us about reciprocity and making beauty and being a blessing and while being blessed, and go light. You don't need all this stuff. You don't need what you think you need. That's just weight. That's just a weight to barricade the break in belonging. It just, you belong. Find your way back and live lightly. Live in the light. Take yourself lightly. That's damn seriously, and just do do what's natural. And every day will present you with opportunities. And as Ramdas said just before he died, say yes to the curriculum, because the curriculum is coming at you every second. And you didn't, that's a syllabus is, you didn't get that in the mail. It's on its way. So, and it's filled with blessing as well as challenge, and let it carve you and shape you and ripen you into your elderhood, because even though creeping decrepitude can be hard, it's also really grubby. So that's my song. The afterlife would have to be seriously groovy to even hold a candle to this life.
Is that song on your website?
It is.
Oh, great. This is amazing. By the way, your songs are so fun to sing. We sang one the other day in our a little song circle. So, and I love how I actually had heard one of your songs before I knew who you were. And I was like, wait, I learned that song from Lisa. And then my friend said, oh, Lisa learned it from Laurence. So love it.
What was it? Doing the impossible?
I don't even remember which one, maybe. They're all, I don't know any of them well enough to like blurt one off the top of my head, but I recognize a lot of them. But they're just kind of, they flow through many spaces now, which is so beautiful. But I want to wrap up, but I want to ask you, where can people attend one of your grief tending rituals or trainings, or what do you have coming up over the next 6 to 12 months?
So there is an outfit that I've been doing grief ritual with for a long time. It's called Sacred Groves, and it's on Bainbridge Island, Washington. And that's where we are doing the grief attending mentorship program. And you can find out about that. And we also offer occasional grief rituals there as well. But mostly we move more towards more time with people aspiring to do the grief work. And the woman who's the founder of that is the person that I met at those grief rituals back in the 90s. So we go back quite a ways. Anyway, then I do more grief tending with another partner, and that's Ale Blakely. And she has quite a presence on whatever internet things like Facebook and whatnot. I don't do these things myself. So she just says she's got me booked up through 2025. So as long as there's a way to get around, that's where I'm going to be. And you can look at that. I'm sure it's all up on the website or whatever. I actually have a website,
Mhm.
uh, laurencecole.com, where you can go and listen to the songs. I'm not so good at posting where I'm going to be doing Grief Ritual, but maybe uh, if somebody, kicks me in the butt sufficiently, I'll get around to doing that.
Maybe I'll do it for you. Because by the way,
Uh,
we'll share both your website and Ala, is it? Ala?
Ale,
Ale.
Ahlay, Blakely.
Yeah, because I found her by searching for you and to find out where these rituals were hosted. And then it so happens that one of my good friends found her music and she has this new album. So we'll put her links in, we'll put your links in, and we'll
Yeah,
make sure people can find and Sacred Groves as well. And then maybe I'll have to bring her on and do another podcast interview about grief tending with her as well.
been doing something just about every month. And then interspersed in that has been the work with the mentees, and we usually have about 35 people that we go through about a 6 month program. Zooming most of the time, and then we get together for an extended period of time, which is really wonderful. And by then, it's amazing how much connection and closeness you can develop through the Zoom work. And then uh, when we get together, it's really quite beautiful. And so it's happening.
I'm assuming there's also more a growing interest in this work. I'm assuming, right? The last few years, especially.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Used to, in particular, we got 13 people or something. It was like, whoa, okay, let's do this thing. And oh my God, a man came. Woo. What's that about? And then nowadays it's pretty even, and there's groups of all men getting together and supporting each other in their grief,
Mm,
which is really beautiful. So there is hope.
there's hope. That's exactly what I was just thinking. There's hope, and thank you, men, for doing this work. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
all humans, and Laurence, thank you especially to you. Again, I can't thank you enough. I'm so glad I said yes, and I can't wait to attend another one, and who knows, maybe even come out to the West Coast. And I thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's been beautiful. I really appreciate this time with you.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully we'll see each other in the real deal before
Yes,
too
we
long.
will.
All
Definitely,
right.
if not sooner, definitely next year. Or I think she said, maybe same time period in the spring. We'll see. Thank you.
Okay. Much love.
Much love
Bye.
to you. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're feeling inspired, I'd appreciate it if you showed your love with a review. And check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of this podcast. You can also head to bethaweinstein.com to learn more about me and grab my free business growth trainings. Remember, you carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times.